What's going on, Player Profiler Nation? Welcome to the latest episode of Trade Gods. I am back. I'm your host, Matty Kiwoom, joined by the morning man himself, my fellow Trade God brethren, Jason Allwine. Good episode last week. Thanks for picking up your boy when I was out camping. I don't know if you can see the color in my face, but yeah, went camping with the fam, so it was a little bit of a nice chance to recharge. Great episode. NFC South. I know you had some things to say about that division, so I'm glad you were able to get it off your chest.
Yeah, I figured, I was like, do we just take the week off? And then I was sitting at home. My girlfriend had to work late, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to just bust out a quick little NFC South video. I'll use anything I can to talk my Falcons. So, yeah, I told you guys to buy some Kyle Pitts, so make sure you're doing that amongst some other ones. But I am more than happy that you're back. There's nothing like chopping it up with you. Hope you had some good camping. I also went camping over the weekend, so it seems we're camping gods, if you will.
Yeah. That's right. We're no longer the trade gods. We're the camping gods. Let us know if you have any camping questions. Leave them in the comments. We'll talk a little camping if you want.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully everyone had a good Fourth. Did you have a good Fourth?
Yes, great Fourth. Really, really great time. Love enjoying the sun.
Fourth is just, it's a great holiday. It's a chance to be with friends and family. It's okay if you have a couple adult beverages if you're 21 or older. It's fun. It's a great time. I absolutely love 4th of July, but I also absolutely love being back talking trades with my man Jason Allwine. We're going to go to the AFC South. You had the NFC South last week, so we're going to stay in the South, and we're going to go with the AFC. We got 4 buy candidates from each team. Well, we each got one, so that's 8. 8 total buy candidates from 4 different teams. Let's get into it. Here we go. Let's start with the Tennessee Titans, my friend.
Yeah.
Who are you buying?
Yeah, I love this offense. Let me go ahead and get that off my chest. I think there's a ton of value to be had with pretty much every asset on here, even down to the riskier ones, even if they are risky. But the one I want the most right now, outside of the one you picked, is going to be the running back, Tony Pollard. I'm officially taking my stand. It appears that across fantasy football right now, you're either on Team Tyjae Spears or Team Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm on Team both, but I think that Tony Pollard has the best value right now, and I also believe that Tony Pollard will be the maybe not like bell cow, but the one getting the most opportunity. Maybe closer to like 70-30 as opposed to like a 75-25 or maybe like a 65-30 type of thing. But either way, I think the lion's share will be going to Tony Pollard. And here's why. Last year, Tony Pollard, despite recovering from a fibula fracture, despite kind of playing through his high ankle sprain recovery, he still finished the year with over 1,000 rush yards. He still finished the year with 55 receptions for 300 receiving yards and still scored 6 touchdowns, averaging 13.1 points per game, which was 23rd amongst all running backs. And what's special about that is he was clearly unhealthy towards the beginning of the year. He had a couple spike weeks, especially week 1. He kind of started out on fire, but then it was literally dwindling as time went on, and it just was obvious that he was not 100%. And we don't even know if he really got to 100% at all over the season. But what we did see is from week 11 onward, he was given the rock a lot more, and he was a lot more productive. In week 11, he scored 18 points off of 80 yards and a touchdown. Week 12, he had 100 yards and a touchdown for 22 points. Week 13, he had 83 yards and a touchdown for 17 points. Week 14, he had 96 yards for 16.6 points because he had 7 receptions. And then in the playoffs, he had 17 points and a 21-point game, basically showing, at least in my opinion, that he did become healthy and was able to be the efficient running back that we fell in love with all the way back in 2021. Because if you'll remember, after 2021, him and Ezekiel Elliott were kind of splitting the backfield, but it was Tony Pollard that really, really was an explosive and elusive running back that led him to becoming the bell cow. Well, not bell cow, but like the featured back in 2022, where he, again, had a 1,000-yard season, 300 receiving yards, but actually finished 8th in points per game with 15.6 and actually catapulted himself in dynasty rankings. He was dynasty RB5 on Keep Trade Cut last year. If you go look at, kind of the lifetime value chart that they have over there, you'll see how excited we were as a dynasty community. To me, that player is still there. Last year, despite being less than 100%, he still handled 68% of the opportunities. He still reached that 1,000-yard mark. He still was top 12 in breakaway runs, 16th in evaded tackles, still 8th in receptions, right? I mean, like these are all things that are really, really good metrics. And the most beautiful thing to me is he's going to Tennessee, who has done nothing but signal that they want to pass the ball. So he's going to get a ton of receptions. And it's a brand new regime with no ties to Tyjae Spears. They brought in this running back because they want to use him and feature him. They gave him the 3-year contract, and he's healthy now. So I think that Tony Pollard's going to be featured. I think he's going to catch a ton of passes. And I think he's going to well outperform his RB 34 price tag on Keep Trade Cut right now, and RB 25 on Player Profiler, showing a huge discrepancy between us at Player Profiler and kind of the market right now at RB 34. There's a ton of value to be had. I think him and Tyjae Spears really could be top 24 running backs this season for cheaper than top 24 price tags. But I think especially Tony Pollard is going to end up with more opportunities and remind us of the running back he was in 2021 and 2022 and the end of last season as well. Get some Tony Pollard while you still can, guys.
Sunday, I hopped on Dynasty Warzone with Jerry, and we were talking about, sometimes when these NFL franchises speak, when they make actions with their money, you should listen and you can follow and get a little bit of an idea of what they're thinking. And if you believe that the money matters for Pollard, it should lead you to believe that they want to use him in a way that's going to help them win football games. And if he can get 50, 60%, even 65%, I mean, due to his efficiencies over his career, I like the call. I'm kind of with you where I think that there's a lot of value to be had on this offense. So I'm just going to kind of go with the guy that's hopefully going to be conducting the train, and that's Will Levis, the quarterback. We're seeing right now his value skyrocket in a lot of fantasy league markets, as high as, quarterback 20. So he's no longer as much of a value in terms of the trade market, but I still believe, amongst some of the quarterbacks that he's ranked around, let's say, the J.J. McCarthy's, Deshaun Watson's, Baker Mayfield's, even Bryce Young, I think he has as good a chance to skyrocket into this top 15, top 12, even conversation in terms of production, given the weaponry. Having DeAndre Hopkins back, signing Calvin Ridley, bringing in Tony Pollard, he's bringing in, J.C. Latham, another offensive lineman, to keep him upright. I think that is exactly what we're going to see from Will Levis. No longer is he a defensive-minded head coach. So that's a big bonus, considering what Callahan did as the offensive coordinator in Cincinnati. So I like Will Levis. Of course, I believe in the prospect profile just a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
He has a great arm, rocket arm, and the videos are popping out of him being in the Caribbean, throwing to Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins. So he's building in that rapport. He's a dog. There's no doubt about that. And right now, if you look at a lot of league indicators in terms of his trade value, it seems like you can acquire Will Levis for like an older quarterback. Call it this isn't super flex leagues. You can acquire him for like an Aaron Rodgers or Geno Smith, plus a wide receiver, a little bit of hype, someone like a Jermaine Burton, Josh Downs, Pop Douglas. And to me, I think the upside of quarterback like Will Levis is absolutely worth selling your wide receiver 5 if you're a good team and an aging quarterback to get someone who's going to a year 2. I think he takes a big leap in year 2. So I'm looking to buy me some Will Levis, the guy at the top of the train, with all these weapons. We talk about the offense being better. I think that you got to point to Will Levis. Any thoughts on Will Levis or anyone else in the Tennessee Titans before we move on, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, I do just really quickly want to say buy DeAndre Hopkins. Like, that's the wide receiver to target. His value is ridiculous to me. He's like wide receiver 60-something on Keep Trade Cut, which I just think is an absolute mistake, especially given he had 1,000 yards receiving last year on a piss-poor Tennessee offense. You talked about all the reasons to buy Will Levis, and you're right. This offense is going to probably be at least top 10 in pass attempts next year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were in top 5. They have no really power running back, so I think there's going to be a ton of checkdowns for those guys. The Bengals offensive coordinator, you mentioned Callahan, they throw the ball a ton. We saw Jake Browning even see some success last year. I think with those weapons, the upgraded offensive line, even bringing in Algerius Sneed to shore up the secondary, shows that they expect to be passing the ball a ton because they expect the other team to be passing a ton. They need to help their secondary. And lastly, I'll just go ahead and say that, oh crap, I lost my train of thought. But Will Levis is a great buy right now. They're going to pass the ball a ton. And I remembered what I was going to say. Will Levis had a quote a couple months ago, and he said, Callahan is asking me to throw on first down. that's kind of the biggest shift of mentality. We know that that's all the Titans did last year was just hand it off to Derrick Henry on first down. That's changing. There's a massive philosophy shift. You need to be getting these Titans pass catchers, but most importantly, you need to take a swing on a young quarterback valued outside the top 20 in your super flex leagues. That's going to be, top of the league in pass attempts. It's just an easy button to press.
Especially when he throws such a nice ball. Will Levis has a rocker arm. It's going to be fun to watch. Let's head to another team that I think is going to be a lot of fun to watch, the Indianapolis Colts. Who are you buying from that offense?
Yeah, and I've probably, talked about this player too many times, but whatever. It's a new episode, and for those of you who have not tuned into Trade Gods before or maybe somehow missed my Jelani Woods propaganda, I'm buying that third-year tight end, Jelani Woods. He's only 25 years old, and he is probably, at least there's an argument, to be one of the most athletic tight ends in the league, if not the most athletic. He's 6'7", 250 pounds. He runs a 4.6 40-yard dash and has 95th percentile burst, 94th percentile speed, and of course, with his size, going to have a really, really nice catch radius. What I like most about him is the Colts tight ends. We saw a ton of success from the collective unit last year. Shane Steichen clearly drew up some plays to get those guys open into space. Gardner Minshew clearly liked him. And even Anthony Richardson liked the tight ends in his limited time last year. All the tight ends last year combined for over 800 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns between the group, which is a very decent stat line for any singular tight end. And I believe that Jelani Woods has the athleticism to become the alpha in the room, become the featured tight end in this offense, and, at least get a good 70 to 80% of that, 600 to 700 yards and 8 to 9 touchdowns, I think is well within the range of outcome for a player like this at his size and speed, especially in the system last year. We saw the tight ends have the success, and we've even seen some flashes from him in his rookie season. He scored 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs. One of them was even a game winner in overtime, so he has that clutch factor. And then a few weeks later, he actually had a 9-target game, and he brought in 8 of them, had 98 receiving yards. So it also showed that he could handle the volume if it was given to him. Now, of course, that's not a lot of flashes, but I still think they were good flashes, especially for a rookie tight end where you rarely see any flashes. Jelani Woods, unfortunately, missed all of last year to an injury. He's healthy now. He's making noise at camp. Shane Steichen talking about how he's falling in love with his athleticism, getting excited on how to use him in the playbook. I think Jelani Woods is gearing up for a pretty decent season. And at the very least, he's free right now. He is free right now. He is the Keep Trade Cut tight end 31. Player Profiler's tight end 39. You could get him for basically nothing, and he'll be a really nice kind of swing or miss tight end to put on your roster, because if he hits, then you've got a really nice athletic tight end with a high ceiling. And if he misses, then you've really not lost anything. But I really don't think he's going to miss. I think he's got too much athleticism on too good of an offense to fail.
You've got me completely on the Jelani Woods train. I told you that before. So I love that call. The Colts still are interesting in that the guys I like, their prices are not really cheap. There's not a lot of value to be had on this offense because A.D. Mitchell is pretty sought-after rookie. Yes. Even Josh Downs is somebody that I'm kind of selling in leagues because I don't know if the path is there to a whole lot of success, but he's still not cheap. And then you have A-Rich, who might be one of the most hyped quarterbacks in fantasy right now. It's going to cost you more than you ever thought possible. Trying to trade for A-Rich, even though I like the players. But I do think that if I'm getting into the weeds here, trying to pick a buy candidate that might have a little bit of value that you can squeeze out, it's Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is still only 25 years old, freak athlete, size, speed, phenomenal player. Yeah. Player comp at PlayerProfiler.com, Ezekiel Elliott, someone that was able to have longevity in the league. And I think now coming into a healthy season, JT is going to be able to kind of reestablish himself as that consistent, healthy workhorse running back. And despite having back-to-back less than ideal seasons on a points per game basis, he was still good. So there were still indicators in that profile that suggest he's very good at running the ball. And he's no longer a top 5 running back in most trade markets. So that's enough of a discount for me because I think this time next year, a healthy Jonathan Taylor will easily be in the top 5, if not top 3, at only 26 years old. He's one of those guys, given the burst, given the athleticism, given the size, given the running ability, the way he can win on the field. He does have a 40 reception season, so we've seen that in the past. I'm willing to at least entertain it. Now, I understand that the price isn't cheap. So, again, just a little bit of value on here. When you look at the trade indicators like Player Profile's lifetime value score, it suggests that you could move a less than proven running back, Tajay Spears. You mentioned why you might be leaning Pollard, so that might be a candidate to sell, or Kyron Williams or his teammate now, Blake Corum. These guys, plus a wide receiver, 3-ish receiver, a Keenan Allen, a Kirk Cousins. You could pivot that to a younger receiver. I think that for these teams that are looking for consolidation trades, they're looking to shorten the roster, kind of take their depth pieces, combine them for a guy that's known who has proven to be a good player at the NFL level. And we now have the contract extension. So that worry that we had last year is gone. He's going to be on the Colts, an offense that we like this year. So even though the price isn't cheap, if I was looking for the value, I am looking for Jelani Woods, to be quite frank. I think that was a great call. But JT does come with a little bit of value. So I'm buying there. We have 2 more teams, my friend, that we're going to talk about: the Jacksonville Jaguars and the potential highlight of this division, the Houston Texans. But before we do, let's hear from the sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by Player Profiler, the Dynasty Deluxe package. The rankings are the best in the industry. It includes strategy mode where you can say, hey, change the rankings to be win now. Oh, change the rankings to be productive struggle. There's also a draft planner to help strategize where you should take players, because the draft planner also includes ADP. There's a trade finder where we look up on My Fantasy League and we see trades that are done, including a particular player. Then there's a trade analyzer where you can plug in draft picks, players, and we assign a lifetime value to draft picks out 5 years. The best thing about our trade analyzer, it can't be gamed with volume. And there's mock draft data to see right now what's the market for player X versus player Y, including in the fall when very few mock drafts are happening. And our Dynasty guide, the Dynasty Dominator, would cost you $10 on Amazon, but you get it for free with Dynasty Deluxe, and you get our rookie guide for free, a $25 value. So you get all of that for $45. I mean, it's a great deal.
Matty, Kiwoom, Jason Allwine, trade gods heading to the AFC South. Jacksonville Jaguars are next up on the list. Jason, who are you buying from the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Yeah, this one's interesting because generally when you see massive contract extensions come in for a player, or they become, the highest paid player at their position in history of the sport, generally you would expect some sort of value increase, but that has not happened with, everyone's favorite quarterback prospect from a few seasons ago, Trevor Lawrence, for some reason right now, despite finishing as the quarterback 13 last year, as both, a season finish and in a points per game basis, he's valued as the quarterback 13 on Keep Trade Cut and Player Profiler, back-to-back 4,000-yard seasons, back-to-back years as a top 15 option, and, seemingly only getting better, really. I mean, the way that this Jaguars offense is kind of invested, it seems awesome to me. Of course, they, bring in this massive contract for Trevor Lawrence to keep him on the team for the next few seasons, but they've also, of course, Christian Kirk's still there. Evan Engram's still there. They bring Gabe Davis in over the offseason, which is obviously not the shiniest of things, but I think a really fun kind of boomer bust option to have on your offense. And of course, their first round draft pick, Brian Thomas Jr., investing in all these weapons around Trevor Lawrence, paying Trevor Lawrence. And yet there's crickets around him right now. And in fact, most people are selling him. I'm looking at Keep Trade Cut right now. His value has only got down over the offseason, despite investments not only towards him, but also in his pass catchers. And I can't wrap my head around it. I think it's a very, very easy buy right now. Again, back-to-back 4,000-yard seasons. Doug Peterson, really solid coach. I mean, this was a player who, obviously had an awful, awful rookie season, but it was not his fault. He's only taken steps forward. And I think that we're just kind of overcorrecting from a disappointing Jaguar season. A disappointing Jaguar season, which, might I add, Trevor Lawrence was playing through an injury. Christian Kirk got injured and was out rest of the season. And Calvin Ridley's old. I know that he was fine and had some spike weeks, but he's old. And Zay Jones was also injured towards the end of the season. I mean, we were streaming Parker Washington, guys. Like, so give Trevor Lawrence a little bit of credit with all these investments. I think that it's easy. Quarterback 13 says floor. Again, back-to-back seasons as that or better. And it's going to get better with better weapons. 4th best protection rate last year, so good offensive line. 2nd in pace of play, so they're playing fast. 8th in pass attempts. 5th in deep ball attempts. 5th in air yards. I mean, this guy is absolutely chucking it. And it has some stuff on the ground, and we can all agree it hasn't even been enough. Trevor Lawrence was a good runner in college, a really solid scrambler, had a 500-yard rushing season. We have not seen that from him yet, but still, he was top 10 last year in carries, red zone carries, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns amongst quarterbacks. So Trevor Lawrence is doing it in all facets, has a really good offensive line, has really good weapons, has a really good coach, is in a competitive division, is the highest paid quarterback in the league, and yet is not valued as such. Go buy Trevor Lawrence.
Buying Trevor Lawrence is so much of the same logic in terms of why I'm buying Will Levis. So I'm with you on the Trevor Lawrence. This division has so much potential in terms of fantasy. Yes. If Tennessee and Jacksonville and Indianapolis and Houston can all live up to the hype, even 80% of the hype, there's going to be so many fantasy points scored in this division. I mean, you're talking about 2 teams indoors, 1 in Florida, 1 in Tennessee, which I know it gets colder, but it's still not Buffalo.
Yeah.
Chicago. There's a lot to be had here. There's a lot of excitement. So I like the Trevor Lawrence call for sure. But I am also buying his tight end. And the reason why I wanted to bring up Evan Engram, because Evan Engram to me is my favorite tight end tier down. We've seen a value explosion at the position like we've never seen in terms of the youth play, these young players skyrocketing up the ranks and becoming so much more value in most leagues. And the indicator suggests as such, where Evan Engram in this offense has been a top 10, top 8 producer on a points per game basis. Each of the last years, he was tight end 4, 13.6 fantasy points per game last year. Both years capped at 4 touchdowns. So if the volume goes down, 143 targets, he could actually go down. Let's call that around 100 or the 98 that he saw in 2022. But he gets 8 touchdowns, 9 touchdowns, because we both agree that this offense should be better. This offense should have points on the board. So if he gets a little bit of touchdown luck, that's going to more than offset some maybe the lack of volume. We know he's efficient. We know he's a great athlete. This is a former top, first-round pick. It took a little while for him to become such a mainstay in Dynasty, but he's here now. And I think he's my favorite tier down. If you're a team that's looking to win now, to make a nice base, a nice core of players that are a little bit more sound, you could take. And you can get crazy with it. If you want to go as high as a Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, even Sam Laporta, depending on what secondary need you're trying to fill, you can kind of see what you can do. Kyle Pitts is another way. I'm taking this. Mark Andrews, any type of tight end tear down, I'm looking to do, because if I need a bona fide running back to make a playoff run, that's what I believe my team is. That's worth it. Or if you can get yourself a T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle is a little bit sleeper right now in terms of the hype surrounding him and his capabilities after getting an extension this year. We talked about extensions being kind of poo-pooed. I like Engram. I like tearing down specifically at this position to a player who has proven it now. Not just 1, not just 2, but 4 seasons as a
5 top 8 PPG.
He's been great. So I definitely like the down tier there for Evan Engram. But I'm with you. Trevor Lawrence is throwing the ball to all these guys, and I like that Trevor Lawrence has a really good deep ball, and he's got deep ball weapons in Gabe Davis now and Brian Thomas. So I do love the call. We talked about batting 1,000 earlier before we started recording. Jay, you're batting 1,000 right here, so keep it up. Let's move to the last team in the AFC South, the Houston Texans. Who are you buying?
Yeah, just real quick. I love the Evan Engram buy. I think it's a very important lesson for athletic tight ends in Dynasty. Evan Engram, first-round draft capital, athleticism for days, took years to break out because he needed the right situation. I believe, Matty Kiwoom, there are a few tight ends that fit that mold that might finally break out this season. Maybe a Mike Gesicki could finally do that in Cincinnati. Maybe a Noah Fant out in Seattle. We've been waiting for Evan Engram. It finally happened when he went to Jacksonville and got that new system. I think there might be a couple more coming. And either way, Evan Engram, great buy, literally finishes the tight end 2 last year in PPR. And doesn't cost that. So, goodbye.
We are simpatico there. We're simpatico on the tight ends. Here we go.
We're the trade gods for a reason. And speaking of being a trade god, why are all 3 of the big Houston Texan wide receivers buys right now? I don't even.
You always know how to extend your list. Always. You are the GOAT. We got 4 trade candidates. No, Jason got 8. You know how to extend it.
I do, because I'm looking here and it's like, yes, the Texans wide receiver I want is Nico Collins. Sure. But I also want the other ones too. So why not throw it all together? Because I think the one thing we're doing as a fantasy space right now is overthinking this. Oh my God, there's 3 alphas in this offense. However, are these targets going to be distributed? Well, Matty Kiwoom, let's do some math. Last year, Stephon Diggs had a 29.5% target share. Finished as the wide receiver 13 on a points per game basis. Last year, Tank Dell had a 20.4% target share. Finished as the wide receiver 18 on a points per game basis. Nico Collins had a 22.7% target share, finishing as the wide receiver 7 on a points per game basis. If you add up all of those target shares, you get 72.6% of targets between those 3 wide receivers, leaving nearly 28% of the targets still available for the other big 2 options. Well, guess what? If you add up Dalton Schultz' 17.5% target share and Joe Mixon's 10.8% target share, you get 29%, which is just 1% more than what is needed to fully fill this offense. So guys, we're overreacting. All of these weapons in this offense can get exactly what they need and it be okay. So Stephon Diggs valued as the wide receiver 39 on Keep Trade Cut, despite finishing as the wide receiver 13 on a points per game basis last year. What are we doing? Tank Dell valued as the wide receiver 21 on Keep Trade Cut, despite finishing as the wide receiver 18 on a points per game basis. What are we doing? And Nico Collins, wide receiver 16 on Keep Trade Cut, despite finishing as the wide receiver 7 on a points per game basis last year. What are we doing? We know that this Houston Texans offense is going to be throwing the ball. We know that CJ Stroud is a great quarterback. We know that Bobby Slowick is a very, very good offensive coordinator. And we know that this division and this offense in general is going to be caught in a ton of shootouts, even if it's not Stephon Diggs week, right? Oh, well, he got you 10 points. Right? And Tank Dell gets the 30. Get them all. Just get them all and start them all every week. Sure, some weeks it's going to be one of the other wide receivers, but some weeks it's going to be your wide receiver as well. And I don't think the floor is as bad as people are saying. It can very, very easily be consolidated between these 3 wide receivers, leaving tons of room for Dalton Schultz, leaving tons of room for Joe Mixon, leaving room for John Mechie if they damn well please. But why would they? Because they have 3 elite options. They could all get 30% target share, and there's still 10% left over for the rest of the offense. There is no concern here. These guys will get their volume. They're going to have their spike weeks, and they're going to be awesome producers at a very cheap cost because no one can choose one. But you don't have to choose one. Choose all 3.
Stroud threw the ball 33 times per game while he was on the field. There's more math to be had. I'm going to give you a homework assignment, Jason. Give us more math. I need more math in my life. So translate that. You know what I'm saying, right?
Right.
Pick up what I'm putting down. Give me what that would look like if he throws the ball. Call it.
Okay, so let's just say for easier math, we'll just say 30 pass attempts a game. Yep. Stephon Diggs 30% target share would be 9 targets.
There it is. This is the math I'm talking about. This is what I have to want to hear. Okay, let me hear.
9 targets a game for Stephon Diggs. Tank Dell's 20% target share. That would be 6 targets. And Nico Collins 22 would be about 7. So 6, 7, 9 targets a game on average for those. And that would be, on the low end, right? I mean, that's just percentage.
So I think I also want to add this though. I mean, if you could get Dell at the value, but if he's valued highly in your league, I think this is also a conversation to sell high on Tank Dell. And this is where I wanted to get to I know it's the bye episode, but when we're using math here, you got me all excited because no, thank you. I got you here. My wife's a math teacher too. She's really good at it. I don't know why I'm so bad at math. Anyway, that also 6 targets for Tank Dell. They're going to be hyper efficient for him to return value.
Which, I mean, he has been.
He has been in the perfect world, but I hate betting on long range efficiencies. I hate.
But you also have to like keep this in mind. So with the math there, that is 24 targets, right? So there's still like 6 left over. And again, he averages more than 30 pass attempts a game. So we're already making it lower. That like at any given game plan, that 6 could be 15, right? Like it really will change, vary from week to week. And you also got to remember that target shares from last year, especially like this 20% from Tank Dell. I mean, he was a rookie, right? So I mean, and he had a couple games where he didn't finish it.
Of course, things will level off, and of course, people will find their role.
Yeah,
maybe it's 7 a game, 8.5.
Yeah, but I don't think.
But I'm just wondering, it's 6 targets per game, Jason. Is he going to be a top 25 receiver? Because that's what he's being valued as.
I think so, because there will be games where he gets those 11, 12 targets, right? Like I don't think that you could very easily say he's only going to get 6 targets a game. But I think even with those 6 targets, knowing how much CJ Stroud likes Tank Dell, those are probably some high value targets. And at the very least, a couple of them, red zone targets or whatever. Tank Dell should be able to produce off a little. And I think you'll still have those spike weeks where it'll be worth it.
That is. That's what I'm trying to hear. The math, you threw me off. But you kind of now tempered a little. You kind of, not gonna lie, you kind of stepped on my flame for my buy candidate, someone I was excited about. And now I'm a little less excited because I'm a little less excited. But anyway, I still think because of the veteran discount, buying Joe Mixon smart process right now. Running backs over the age apex, and he's barely over it. He's 27, going to be 28 this season. Those guys go to discount. And so I do think it's a good process to buy those running backs when their prices are down at this point in the season and you're looking to win now. But you look at a guy's profile and you see 42, 60, and 52 receptions over the last 3 years. Getting to that mark seems less and less likely. But then again, Devin Singletary was very good in that role. But then again, there was no Stephon Diggs. I still believe that Joe Mixon's a buy. I'm going to say it now. I still think that Joe Mixon is a slight buy because we love the offense. Mm-hmm. And if Tank Dell gets tackled on the 1-yard line 3 times this season, that could convert to 3 touchdowns for a guy like Joe Mixon, who has been a good goal line running back throughout his career. And going right now as running back 24, you could get him for similar prices that you expressed for Tony Pollard. Yeah. So I think a lot of the same principles in how you approach buying Joe Mixon is fundamentally the same as you mentioned for Tony Pollard. So I think the process is sound there. But, man, talking about that target shit, got me a little nervous. You kind of pushed me out on Dalton Schultz, though.
He could get 10%. I think he could get to 10%, which is plenty. I think that's plenty, especially these are probably going to be some high-value targets. I like the Joe Mixon buy. I think he's honestly – let me rethink this. Let me double-check in my head, but I really think he's my favorite win now running back to buy right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could make the argument for it. I think definitely he's in that range for me too.
Over Aaron Jones, I mean, Alvin Kamara is really the only one where I start scratching my head, but I think that, Kendra Miller is a little bit more threatening than a Dameon Pierce.
For sure agree with that statement. 100% agree with that statement. But I think what the lesson here that we learned today's episode was buy the AFC South.
Oh, yeah. But I was excited.
Head on to the AFC South, buy yourself some real estate there. Get some ownership all around this division because, again, 2 teams indoors, 1 in Florida, 1 in Tennessee. So you're not as worried about the late round possibilities. They're developing defenses, but I don't think you could, rashly say that any of these defenses are as scary as, the Niners or the Chiefs even.
Texans are getting there.
Texans are getting there. They're getting there for sure, but I don't know if they're quite there yet, considering the high-powered offenses around here. So buy AFC South wherever you can, and buy Jason Allwine. Jason, let the people know what you're working on, where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on social media at JFootballWine, and you can tune into my other show, Wake and Take, that is every Monday through Friday here on Player Profiler. at 10 a.m. Eastern, breaking down news and whatever other fantasy football topics I feel like discussing.
Yes, sir. And you can find me at Kiwoom on the old Bird app, or the formerly known Bird app. Here at Player Profiler, you can know the epic shows, or you can head over to the trade rankings or the draft rankings.com. Trade's always on my mind when I talk Jason.
Trade.
I can't help it. But make sure you're liking this video. Make sure you leave a comment and make sure you subscribe to the Player Profiler YouTube channel and the Player Profiler News YouTube channel. I'm Matty Kiwoom. He's Jason Allwine. We are the Trade Gods, and we will see you next week. Peace.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.